Hello, everybody. Now, before I go any further, I just wanted to let you guys know that there are a few families that are missing tonight: the Lardners, the Wilsons, the Borderstons. They sent their love. As you know, Chris and Julia are associate pastors. They sent their love. Chris's sister got married yesterday in Victoria, so they're all down there celebrating that awesome event and send their love to the church today. So I do have the privilege of doing the very first message of the year, and I'm really, really rusty. And when I actually I have my little preach folder, and because I'm old school, and when I actually got that out and pulled out the last preach that I'd done, it was March last year, and I'm like, yikes, I'm really, really rusty, so bear with me. But I really hope that today it's a message of hope for you from now as the year unrolls. And you know what, there's a huge expectation on 2021 that it better be a better year than 2020. Now, we've all been saying it, and I know it's just literally the night changes and we're in a new year, and that actually doesn't physically mean anything. But for a lot of us, we've been saying, goodbye, farewell 2020, glad to see the back of you. We had so much hope for 2020. 2020 was perfect vision. 2020 was the promise of a brand new decade. I remember 20 years ago when the years turned from 1999 to 2000, and a lot of you guys will not remember this, but there was a thing called the Y2K, and they thought that all of the computers around the world would glitch because their program was set to the numbers 19-something, 1989, 1999. So when the year flipped over to 2000, everybody freaked and said the world was going to come to an end. That was it. I knew people that had bunkers and were storing water and food, and it was an absolute non-event. And I remember the night we were actually hosting a New Year's Eve party at our home, and it was just a fizz. It was like a non-event, and we all went, well, was that it? Nothing happened. Then in 2020, we are all filled with expectation and hope, and guess what happens? Our life gets totally thrown into a lifestyle where nothing's normal. Our life just, goodbye normal life. Within the first few weeks of 2020, it became really obvious that this was not going to be the year that anybody expected. And we did have a little bit of a rough end of 2019, and pretty well this area set the scene for the fires that then consumed most of the east coast of Australia. It started here. So we sort of had a bit of a rough beginning, but it was pretty clear within the first few weeks that something different was happening. I personally had one of the most challenging years of my life, and that was apart from COVID. If we put COVID to the side, it was actually one of the most challenging years of my life. I want to do a quick summary for you about the thumbs down moments of my 2020. Okay, and now there's so many, it was ridiculous, so I'm just doing the highlights, okay? The lowlights. So back in March, there was stuff that happened before March, but we'll just start in March. Back in March, on March the 15th to be exact, we went to church in Panthers Club where we used to meet for what was going to be our very last church service. None of us knew. We all hugged each other goodbye, said see you next week, and that was it, last of church. Also on the 15th, that exact same night, as we were leaving said last church service, my neighbour rang me on the way home and she said, I don't want to panic you, but your house is on fire. Your kids I had two children, I had Zach and his girlfriend Missed at home, and they said, they're out, they're okay, but your house is fully alight. So we drove home at breakneck speed, and when we pulled we live in a little cul-de-sac out at King Creek, and when we pulled into that cul-de-sac, there were 8 fire trucks, there was paramedics, there was police, and our house was on fire, and all the eaves, and it was dark by then, and all the eaves around our whole entire house had smoke coming out of them, and it's like, oh my goodness. So that was the same night as last church service, okay? For 3 weeks after that, we lived in motels. We lived in Port Macquarie because our house was not livable. And while we were there, COVID hit with a vengeance. So here we were living finally right in smack bang in the middle of Port Macquarie CBD. We couldn't go to restaurants. We couldn't go shopping. Everything was closing down. And it was a weird, weird time happening. And here we were, we were homeless. The realisation that church was completely finished came with the closure of Panthers Club the following week, where we'd been meeting for 18 months, and that meant the cancellation of our big Easter service that we had prepared to do. First time we had never gone to church for Easter. Our Coastside Church USA 2-week trip to Catalyst Conference in America in April was cancelled. Everything was booked. We'd paid for everything. There was a team of 8 of us going. It was cancelled. Mark and I had our 30th wedding anniversary, and we'd planned a holiday in Hawaii to celebrate that. That was cancelled. School going back at the start of term 2 was cancelled. Okay, this is a biggie. I think this was bigger than the 30th wedding anniversary. I had to homeschool my kids. Now, someone was pretty good because she's in high school. Zeke, loving school, as you can imagine. We had to learn all about Zoom meetings, and I literally had him and I on a dining room table. I had gyp rockers putting new ceilings on my ceiling, and painters standing next to me painting, and tools going off, and here I'm trying to homeschool this child of mine. It was actually a really insane, crazy time. Literally sharing our home for months with about 20 tradesmen. There was no Mother's Day, Father's Day celebrations. Arnie Dot, this is a big one. Arnie Dot, one of our founding members, passed away during COVID, and none of us were able to go and see her. That was really tough. This was still going. I'm going in order that it happened, okay? Then after our fire claim had just nearly finished and wasn't quite to the end of being finished, our pipe burst in our house and flooded 2 of our rooms completely, wiped out the carpet, all the skirting boards, everything was about that much deep of water. So that happened. And then in November, so that happened in October, then in November, our daughter's car was stolen from our front yard. So that was 2020 for me. That was fun. That was a good ride. And they were just the big ticketed items. There was lots of little things that I was dealing with as far as Zeke's school and all this sort of stuff that was happening. There was like even more challenging things with family, relationships, business, all that sort of stuff. She was a tough year. And on top of that was all of the COVID regulations and restrictions, and we run a business, and so it is a hospitality business. So there was like all of that unrolling, and what we had to do to safeguard our staff and what we had to do to safeguard the customers. It just was so full on. And all of that was actually enough to bring someone to their knees, and not in a good way. Each of those scenarios had the potential to wipe my peace out completely. And I think in previous years gone by, I had really been rattled by a lot less. There are things that had come up that had just completely shaken me to the core, that were one thing. And here I was contending with 20 major issues. Those things had left me feeling anxious, they'd left me feeling stressed, they'd left me feeling depleted as a person. And I want to share this really cheery and uplifting thought with you guys today. And that is, 2021 may be a worse version than 2020. Isn't that exciting? I'm glad you're really encouraged by that. You're welcome. But I want to ask you today, how do we prepare our hearts and our lives for this kind of stuff? How do we prepare for the most absolutely unexpected stuff? Like my year, I'm a big, yay, new year, new start, new whatever. And I'm like, I went from here to there within quite a few, like a small amount of time. And how do we prepare when this sort of stuff happens? And like I said, COVID was crazy, but just one of those things that happened to us was crazy. But the whole list of those things happening to us, it was like month after month after month, we had a massive challenge in our family. I didn't have any health issues this year, and neither did my family. But if you do, if you're facing stuff, how do you prepare for that journey? How do we prepare our hearts and our lives for these disruptions that threaten to derail our peace? Today, I'm speaking about fighting for our peace. 1 Corinthians 16:13, and I'm going to read out the Passion Translation, says, "Remember to stay alert and hold firmly to all that you believe." So when things come to rock you, when things come to shake you, when there's diagnoses or there's robberies or there's house fires or there's stuff that's just out, left wing that's out of the blue, how do we stand firm in all of that? The Bible says we've got to stay alert and we have to hold firmly to what we believe. The only way we can hold firm to what we believe is to build our faith, is to build our foundation. I often, and I don't want to deviate too much because I've got a lot to say today, but I often love to encourage people to say, this is your journey with God, work it out. I will give you the keys, I will give you the guidance, I'll give you what you need to know to find out how to do it right. But you've got to ultimately build and fortify your own spiritual walk, your faith, and your salvation. You know what? For us to be able to walk through life with our faith, our stability, and our peace firmly intact, we need to be alert and prepared and to hold on to all that we believe despite the storms that swirl around us. Over these last 12 months, too many people over the COVID church holidays, I call it, have fallen asleep at the wheel. Too many people. They have estimated worldwide that the average is 40% less people now attend a church. Some people have discovered it's up to 80%. So during COVID, Christians have fallen asleep at the wheel. We need to be strong enough in our walk with God to face the rough times and the bad times in life. The past year was chock full of bad, and it really was, and COVID for me was just the nasty little icing on top. But I can honestly say that as I stand before you today, my faith at the end of this year and the end of last year and the beginning of this year is stronger, and I'm more peaceful than I've ever been. Despite that list, and like I said, it was only the big ticketed items that I read out. It wasn't all of the other stuff that I had to deal with. But I can honestly stand here and say I am more at peace in my relationship with God and in my life, and stronger than I've ever been in all of the other stuff that's come before me and threatened to batter me. And I want to make a statement, and I said it before, that's highly contradictory, but it's so truthful, and that is that we actually need to fight for our faith. And I know that fight for our peace, and I know that fighting and peace are opposites, but for us to walk in consistent faith and peace, we have to be prepared to really, really fight for it. We have to make a choice to have peace because stuff happens all the time. Crappy things happen. We have to be prepared to make a choice to find peace in our life. When I was allowed to return to my home after the fire, due to the insurance assessors and that, we couldn't get into about 6 o'clock that night. So it was already dark and getting dark. And our entire life, when we walked in the front doors of our house, our entire life had been packed up into boxes. So every soft furnishing, so you can imagine cushions, all your clothing, all the bedding, everything you can imagine was, they'd taken it away, cleaned it, assessed it, put it in boxes. And there was just boxes everywhere. My whole entire house was full of boxes. I have 8 people that live in my house with all my kids and boarders and everything. And so there was a lot of stuff. And there was still soot on the walls everywhere, the ceiling, it was still all burnt because I hadn't even begun to fix all of that. They just cleaned, like I said, all the soft furnishings. There was huge industrial fans going 24 hours a day just to make the air breathable, because I don't know if you've ever smelt what a house fire smells like. It is just the most vile smell. So we had these huge industrial fans going 24 hours a day to try and make the air breathable for us. And an hour after getting home, I was searching through the boxes, and I And I sat on the edge of my bed and I just started bawling my eyes out because I couldn't find any stupid sheets to make our beds. And I'm sitting there howling, going, where are my sheets? I don't know where the sheets are. I can't find anything. All we've got is these mattresses on these bed frames, and there's nothing. There's nothing. There was no pillows. We had to go, while we were living in Port, had to go and buy pillows. There's just because it stunk. What the few things we grabbed from home smelled. And I look back and I thought, in the past few weeks, I've powered through the catastrophe of fire, of loss, of disruption, of displacement, the closure of our church, the loss of my job, and every emotion my kids were going through because of all of that. And here I was, completely unstuck because I couldn't find the bed sheets. And as I sat there and I was like, I could feel the whole thing starting to really build up inside of me. And as I sat there crying, I knew I had to make a choice to stop the anxiety before it threatened to swallow me up. And I'm sitting there on the bed, and the unmade bed because I can't find the sheets, and industrial fan in my room going, and I'm just like, I need to make a decision. And I made a decision. So I wiped my eyes and I asked God for his peace for that moment, for the days ahead, and for the months ahead. Little did I know that I would really need that peace. It's not the first time I've had to claw my way to peace. A miscarriage, death, betrayal, all those things have threatened to steal my peace completely. You know, through all the crazy circumstances of life, trusting God has been my greatest and only answer. Philippians 4:7 says that when we ask God, he gives us a peace that goes way beyond our human understanding. We ask God, he'll give us a peace that doesn't make sense. When everybody goes, how is it possible to find any joy or hope or peace in this circumstance? God finds a way. It's a peace that finds a home when the circumstances say it shouldn't. In situations where we can experience anxiety and stress and worry and be overwhelmed, God's peace is there for us. It is our choice how we look at the world and our life and our circumstances. It's our choice what we invite to come and live. When we are robbed of peace, life can feel like the enemy, and it really can. It feels like we're drowning. Our emotions are triggered by any small thing, and we feel constantly powerless. And now I've grabbed, honey, can you just pass me that glass? Thank you. So I want you to look at this glass. It's pretty well halfway. Is it half filled or is it half empty? Those who allow negativity or fear to be their voice will say, look, half of it's gone already, what's the point? Those who operate in positivity and faith and allow peace to be their voice will say, look, there is still half a glass left. I've already told you about my glass half empty things of 2020. I've already told you about the negative, the stuff that's very overwhelming. Now I want to flip it around and I want to share my glass half full experience of 2020. After so much damage to our home, after the fire, we were able to do some renovations and create a space that really helped our home function for our family. It was something that we'd always dreamed of doing, and the insurance claim made that possible. Having church and Panthers Club shut down meant that we had to think outside of the box. We created over 80 online videos, and we found our new home here in Acacia Avenue. And it also sorted out some people that were toxic and needed to go. Against all odds and financial barriers in the middle of COVID, we found this new premises for church within 5 minutes of deciding to start looking for a new home. And that is not a lie, within 5 minutes. Within a couple of hours on that same day, God had opened a series of amazing doors that led us to be here. From meeting the landlord that same afternoon to having a view of this empty shell, to a church partnership with people builders, God went before us. While I was still living in a motel, I felt God prompt me to start writing a daily blog to encourage people through the year. I post my blog posts on Instagram and I post them on Facebook under the title Be the Change 24/7. Those blogs are shared in Africa and they're shared in America, across America. It has grown my faith, and I pray and I know that people that I have had contact with who have inboxed me privately have said, I don't even go to church, I'm not even really a believer, and what you've written gets me through this. Our cancelled trip to the USA led to us getting around 95% of our entire trip financially returned within the first few weeks, an absolute miracle. The day of our 30th wedding anniversary, instead of walking down the beach at Waikiki, we walked down our local town beach, and when we got home, our kids had set up a surprise Hawaiian party for us with decorations, music, food, the works. So even Jonas did a ukulele serenade for us. You know, when we moved out of the Mumford Street premises, our old premises of church, we gifted all of our chairs to Grace Church. When we got this building, we were gifted all of the chairs that you're sitting on by Kofsai and Sea Church. My beautiful second grandson was born. Meeting Blaze was the highlight of 2020. Even though it was 3 days late, it didn't matter. It made the meeting also sweet. And even getting our car stolen, we were able to get a newer car thanks to insurance. There's so much more half-full experiences, but I'm going to stop. You see, no matter what is going on in or around our lives, we've just got to let God do his thing and trust him in that. We don't have the answers. We don't have the solutions. God does. And it's not all easy sailing. You feel a little bit battle weary. You'll feel some pain. But we've got to know that there is an alternative solution to being carried through life on a wave of uncontrollable situations and circumstances that leave us feeling battered, bruised, and broken. And the band, you're welcome to come back up. You know what? 2021 is standing before us. And if you're anything like me, the bar isn't as high as it usually is for the new year. I'm just happy that we did it. I'm happy that we've made it through and God's gone before us. Things may happen to you this year that may rattle you. Maybe relationships will falter. Maybe people will end their journey with you. And that's not always a bad thing. Maybe jobs will be lost. Maybe your health may suffer. Maybe financial pressure may surround you. Loss may find you. COVID will probably continue. It still is. But I urge you today to look for God's peace in the middle of it all. It works. I promise you, it really works. To have walked through the year that I just walked through with my family, it works. If you know that you are easily derailed and distracted by circumstances, then ask yourself, how personal and connected is your relationship with Jesus? Like I said before, we have to be cemented in our faith walk. We need to be alert and be prepared for what's coming. Because sometimes we'll cruise through a whole year and it'll be phenomenal. And that's when our faith might be really strong and we go, this is awesome. But how prepared are we for the 2020s in life? How prepared are we for the house fires and the whatever comes our way? How prepared is our faith walk with God? So many claim to be okay with God, but walk away when the going gets tough. Or some have no idea of this kind of peace even exists. It's a peace that cancels out the noise of anxiety and stress and fear. When it is overwhelming, God flatlines it. When it just feels like it's a little bit too much, and like I sat on that bed and it was all a little bit too much. Yes, I was looking for sheets on my bed, but it was really deeper than that. It was all a little bit too much. And God spoke very clearly to me and he said, make a decision. Fight for peace. Fight for the peace in your heart. It's real, it's relevant, and my life, even just last year, is a testament to that. You know, last week the last time we were here together, we were celebrating on Christmas Day, and we talked about one of the names given to Jesus was Prince of Peace. It's his name. He is the absolute ruler of peace. And today, as we stand on the edge of a brand new year filled with unknown everythings, we need to operate in that peace every single day. Say goodbye to those things and those people that have negative power in your life and step into the peace of God. It's no magic formula. It's just a matter of saying, God, go before me. Give me that peace that goes beyond my understanding, that goes beyond everybody around me's understanding, and grant me that peace. By choosing to fight for your peace, you will anchor your faith life and you will stop being washed around by the emotions of stress and fear and anxiety and distraction. It will anchor you strong to face whatever is ahead in your life. Let's just pray. Lord, I just thank you tonight. God, I just thank you for your incredible principles and your incredible peace around each one of us. I thank you that you give us the keys, God, to walk a stable and consistent life in you. I pray, God, for those that may not experience the peace that goes beyond our human understanding. God, across this auditorium tonight, across this studio, Father God, I pray a peace in the hearts of those that are sitting here struggling with stress or anxiety for a situation in their life. And God, I just pray that they find that revelation in you. They find that peace, God, that goes before them, that no matter what life throws at them, no matter what is swirling around them, that God, you've got this. And that we can walk securely in that. And I thank you, God, for that incredible gift of peace, of supernatural peace. That in the darkest times of our life and in those darkest moments where our hearts are breaking and our life feel broken, that, Father God, that you will reach in and give us incredible peace. And I thank you for that, Jesus. Amen.